All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of YouTube. Pastor Dowell here. I'm going to try to use this as a teaching tool to show you that everybody's not on the same wavelength, and everybody doesn't have the same level of maturity when it comes to approaching things in life. It's sad, it's very unfortunate, but again, I'm going to use this as a teaching tool. All right. So recently we've had quite, I'm going to say just a few people. A few people have trouble with some insignia that we come up with for people who have passed. I'm going to use this and be humble as I can. Just a couple of days rigorous course that we come up with here. To test the mind of men. And it's just a symbol showing you that, you've accomplished something that nobody else has. And, I did a video on my Patreon account. And a lot of people need to understand that Patreon is a paid account. It's like a paid membership. If you go over there on Patreon, it's a private account paid, okay? And I dealt with this particular situation over there on my private account in Patreon. All right. And then a brother decided that, he was just going to leave the ministry, which is fine and good. People come and people go. That's fine and good. Over this insignia thing. That's his choice and prerogative. Myself and Brother Gideon, we broke it down. I can't tell you how many times to its lowest common denominator. And so we have, Brother Baldwin, which is a professional arbitrator in the ministry, who has his own law classes. And so he took it upon himself to actually go and look at the origins. And I want people to listen to me real close because, I've always been of the mindset, whether people comprehend it or not, here in Straitway, I'm very slow about adopting a position. I'm very slow about adopting a stance. Anytime we do anything, I comprehend full well the type of world that we live in. I understand the challenges of minds. And I'm looking at the time that we're living in. People actually really truly believe, contrary to what the word says, they really truly believe that it's okay for them to be offended. Now, if that's a fact, and if it's okay for you to be offended, then you need to go ahead and receive the very judgments that Messiah said that comes with offense. My camera's not adjusting. Okay, it's just doing its own thing. Maybe it's the light here. I don't know. But anyway, then you need to go ahead and do exactly what the Messiah says. If you are offended, you need to pluck your eye out if your eye causes you an offense. If you are offended, you need to cut off your right hand if your hand causes you to be offended. If you are offended, then cut your foot off if you're offended. That's pretty much the solutions to offense, unless you truly just want to repent and turn from it. So it's a 10-page article right here, and it's backed up by sources to where you can easily go and search them all out. But I'm going to read to you facts. And I'm hoping to reach just a few people who are just stubborn in spirit. Just stubborn. See, some of you believe that once you have something, once you got something, you think that is the end all and be all to truth. That's it. And you can't hear nothing else. And you got a war onto you, especially if these offenses take place. So I'm going to hit this, okay? And I'm going to read this real quick, all right? So y'all listen real close, okay? From tools to titans. Hear that? From tools to titans. The ancient origins of the fork, trident, and bident. Before these implements were wielded by gods in Greek mythology, the tools were recognized as the fork, trident, and bident. Had far more humble and practical beginnings, long before they took on mythological significance. These tools were used by early civilizations for farming, fishing, and survival. While the Greeks ultimately borrowed and adapted these implements into their pantheon, their original origins and purposes were rooted in everyday lives of the Egyptians, the Israelites, and Mesopotamians. Understanding their origins help us to use these tools for what they are, practically everyday items that ancient people relied on to sustain their societies. Next paragraph. The fork's forgotten roots. A practical tool before a symbol of refinement. The evolution of the fork begins not in the dining rooms of medieval Europe, but in the fields and kitchens of ancient civilizations. Forked tools used for cooking, fishing, and farming have been found in Mesopotamia and Egyptian archaeological records. Dating back thousands of years, initially, the fork was a tool of utility rather than elegance. Primary use to handle food during preparation and to serve it without direct contact. An important consideration in ancient societies that valued cleanliness. The fork, with its multi-pronged design, was essential for practical activities like lifting and turning food as much as it is today. Over time, especially during the Byzantine Empire, the fork was elevated to the symbol of sophistication, marking its transition from humble kitchen tools to an instrument of dining refinement. In this sense, the fork transformation and the practical implement to a social marker mirrors the evolution of the trident and bident in Greek culture. But unlike these mythological tools, the fork's journey is tied to everyday use, reflecting its origin in ancient kitchens and farms. Paragraph 3. The origins of the trident and bident tools for symbols of power. The trident and the bident are often portrayed today as fearsome weapons by the gods Poseidon and Hades. But their roots lie in much earlier and more practical uses. The trident, originally a simple fishing spear, was used by various coastal civilizations throughout the Mediterranean and Near East long before it became associated with the Greek god of the sea. Its three-pronged design was made it an effective tool for spearing fish, a vital food source for early peoples. Similarly, the bident, later used as a symbol of Hades' rule over the underworld, began as a farming tool. The two-pronged bident was used to dig into the earth, turn the soil, harvest crops, particularly in Egypt and Mesopotamia. Both the trident and the bident are essential for early survival, yet they were not viewed as weapons of divine authority until the Greeks repurposed their symbols, repurposed them into symbols of cosmic power. Paragraph 4. Where were these tools originally called? What were these tools originally called? In their original forms, the trident and the bident and the fork were not known by the mythological names given to them in the Greek culture. Instead, they were referred to by their function names, like the trident was likely known as a type of harpoon or fishing spear used to catch fish along coastlines. The bident, on the other hand, functions of digging fork and pitchfork, particularly in agricultural settings, where the two-pronged design made it useful for lifting and moving hay or soil. And of course, if you're an agricultural people, you live on a farm, you know that to be true. While these tools were practical implements in their original context, and that's good, this article is putting it in order, original context. Their symbolic meanings grew over time as civilizations began attributing spiritual and supernatural significance to everyday objects. The Egyptians, for instance, associated the use of the tool, like the fork, with divine aspects of agricultural and life-sustaining work, particularly through gods like Osiris, who was both the god of the dead and the lord of the harvest. Paragraph 5 right here. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5. The Greeks borrowing with attribution, Greeks borrowing with attribution, the cultural transformation. When the Greeks encountered these tools through cultural exchanges with early civilization, they did not invent new tools, but borrowed them and reinterpret them and their significance. Unlike the Egyptians and Mesopotamians, who used the tools in practical life-sustaining ways, the Greeks elevated them into symbols of divine authority. The tools were not glorified for their original purposes, for feeding and nurturing civilizations, but instead adopted into symbols of immense supernatural power in the hand of their gods. However, it is important to note that the Greeks, while skilled at storytelling and world building in their myths, did not always acknowledge the practical roots of the cultural origins of these tools. The trident, for example, was once a fisherman's spear, but was transformed into Poseidon's weapons of choice, able to summon storms and earthquakes. The Bidon, originally a farm tool, became associated with Hades and his dominion over the underworld. This transformation and practical implements to divine instruments speaks to the Greek tendency to mythologicalize and dramatize, sometimes of the cost of erasing the origins of these objects. The Greeks did not refer to the items to these items of their original name, but instead imbued them with new identities and reflected their gods' roles in doing so. They attached the tools from the agricultural and survivalist context, rebranding them as symbols of power rather than practical implements. It's a reminder that much of what we associate with Greek mythology has deep roots in early, often unknowledged civilizations. Cultural changes and influences of the original or the true original story. The appropriation of these tools by the Greeks reflects the broader pattern and culture exchange in the ancient world. Civilization in Near East and the Sumerians, Babylonians, Egyptians, and Israelites developed highly sophisticated systems of agriculture, fishing, and governments that required the use of these tools. The Greeks, through trade and conquest, encountered these civilizations and were inspired by their invocations. This borrowing, however, did not always come with the acknowledgement, as the Greeks often repurposed these objects to fit their own mythological narratives. The true origin story, or the true original story of the trident, the bidon, and the fork lies not in the hands of the Greek gods, but in the daily lives of fishermen, farmers, and craftsmen from early civilization. These tools were essential to survival, used to feed families and communities long before they were imbued with supernatural meanings. The Greeks, skilled as they were at crafting legends, transforming these tools into objects of powers, but their practical origins, as fishing spears, digging forks, and serving utensils, should not be forgotten. The conclusion, restoring the historical context. By exploring the true origins of the fork, the trident, the bidon, we gain a deeper understanding of how tools evolved into symbols over time. The Greeks may have borrowed these implements from early civilizations, but their true power lies not in their ability to destroy or dominate, but in their humble beginnings as tools or as tools of survival. Whether used for fishing, farming, dining, these objects were integral in the lives of ancient people across Mediterranean and Near East. As we look at the mythological versions of these tools today, it's important to remember that their origins or their original names and purposes were grounded in practicality. The trident was once a simple harpoon, the bite in a pitchfork, and the fork a kitchen utensil, all vital for sustaining life. It was only through the cultural transformation and in the imagination of the Greeks that these tools become symbols of divine authority, reflecting both creativity, a myth, and deep connections between everyday life and spiritual meaning in ancient world. You know, I cannot tell you how many times in life that, you know, like I see it all the time in preaching. You'll get a preacher, all right? He will come up with a divine revelation or something like that, and then another preacher will go preach it as if it originated with them and will not give credit to the source where they got it from. That's the same thing that the Greeks did. Today we might as well all get rid of, you know, if you was farming out here and you're going to throw hay, you're going to use the pitchfork. All right. If you're going to go gig frogs and stuff like country folks do out here in the creek, you might as well get rid of the so-called, what they call trident. And if you're going to be eating food, you might as well get rid of the fork. I mean, it's just nonsensical, the things that we come up with and how we try to tie something that we're using from a pure mindset to Greek mythology, which we know these are all false gods and have no power whatsoever at all. What gives these Greek gods power is you believing their account and their stories. You just heard what the original is, and not only that, this is just a portion of this particular, I may come back a little later on and finish it off on Patreon over here, but this is just a portion of the first part of this article, and here are some of the citations to it, which I don't know if you can read it or not, but that's the citations right there. And you can pause the video at any given time and see the sources where it all came from. I think the brother Baldwin did an excellent job. This is stuff that I had already communicated and said to brethren. But you know, when you are under a spirit, and I'm not saying the Holy Spirit, and you got stuff that drives you, and it continues to keep driving you, and then it alters and changes the composition of the fruit of the Spirit which is in you, love, joy, and peace, and long sufferings. You know, there's some serious issues and problems. And then we start to take on the nature of evil spirits to try to convey to other folks and try to bewitch them over to our particular stance and stuff without any knowledge or understanding or foresight whatsoever at all. You just heard the truth, and it's nothing but the truth. But it's sad that people can so easily be persuaded and taken out just because of a dissenting opinion that they have. Now, our opinion is in the ministry that, I mean, basically to us, it is nothing. You know, I remember being in the military. You know, we had insignia like this that we wore on our uniforms. Like this. So we are accustomed with wearing insignia on our uniforms. And a lot of these things that I'm showing you are badges that I earned or either a unit I was in while in the military. And each one of them, all of them had to do with being that. And so we come up with an insignia that is different. You can't even find it on the internet. But now all of a sudden people want to say there's some type of nefarious ways within us that we're trying to, that's basically what they're doing. They blame shit and pointing the finger that we have some type of evil that's influencing us to cause us to do these things when it came strictly from a pure heart. And no amount of evidence that you present, did y'all hear what I said? No amount of truthful evidence that you present, because see, a lot of people, when they get out here, listen very closely, they speak from their opinion. And then they twist and they warp scriptures. They twist and they warp facts because saving face for them is more of a high commodity than actually the truth which sustains us. But Yahshua said it best. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. It will set you free. Now, at the end of the day, you can pick and choose whether you want to wear it or not. It don't make no difference to us if you've been through the class and you've graduated. But to us, it's a nonsensical issue. And I think that the spirit of division is working on a grand scale. So what is it now that the Most High Yah brought you here to this pastor right here And now all of a sudden, these many years later, you're critical of every single thing that I do. It's amazing, isn't it? And no matter how much truthful evidence that I show you, you're still going to end up with the same thing, the truth, and the truth straight way. So don't be bewitched by a lot of people because they choose to adopt certain positions and certain stances. In everything in life, you save yourself. But just because someone has an opinion about something and they come from what the Greeks took it from, the original origin, and they go from there and then go up, that's nonsensical. It's nonsensical. It doesn't hold any weight whatsoever at all. It's not a reliable source. Just because the Greeks decide to Godize it, or if you can use that term. Now, is there such thing as Poseidon? The answer is no. Just because they say it is doesn't mean anybody ever seen Poseidon. No. Anybody ever seen Thor? No. We never seen none of these quote unquote Greek gods. They're all mythological, just like many of you in your opinions, mythological. And you're seeking to persuade and sway and be a cancer to the innocent minded. And, you're offending one of these little ones. And now, the book says if you offend one of these little ones, it's better if a millstone was tied around your neck and thrown off into the depths of the sea. I'm telling you, man, it's not good when you go around adopting positions, strong positions, and you believe that you're so right. Even you come to the authority and we tell you that you're not, and you still hang on to that. That's a very stubborn spirit when you have no facts. You can't come from the Greek perspective only without doing your due diligence and get the before and the after and all in between in order to determine what truth is. I hope I said something to stimulate thought. Y'all be encouraged. The King is coming.